The courtroom smelled faintly of antiseptic and old paper, sharp, sterile, and suffocating all at once. I sat on the witness bench, my palms pressed flat against my skirt to hide the sweat pooling there. My name, Emily Carter, had just been called, and every eye in the room turned toward me. I could feel the silk of my blouse sticking to my back, a small betrayal of how hard I was trying to look composed. My heart thudded against my ribs, a little too fast, but my face stayed calm. Years of practice had taught me how to hold my chin high, even when I was breaking inside. Across the room, my sister sat with her attorney. Jessica, flawless hair, flawless posture, but her smug little half-smile faltered when our eyes met. Behind her, my parents sat rigidly on the wooden benches, my father's jaw clenched, my mother's hands folded too tightly in her lap. None of them looked at me. The judge's gavel struck once, a sharp sound that seemed to echo in my bones. "Miss Carter, you may begin your testimony." I took a breath, the air tasting like dust and tension. My phone, tucked away in my purse, buzzed silently against my leg, but I ignored it. This was the moment. The moment I had replayed in my head 1,000 times, in sleepless nights and doctors' waiting rooms. My throat tightened, but I spoke anyway. "My name is Emily Carter," I began, voice steady, "and I am here because my sister stole the medication that keeps me alive." The day it happened is burned into my memory like a scar. It was 2 years ago, a sticky July afternoon in our small Ohio suburb. I had just gotten home from my part-time shift at the bookstore, my body still heavy from the fatigue that always followed a seizure the day before. I headed straight for the bathroom cabinet where I kept my anti-seizure medication, my lifeline. The bottle wasn't there. I remember standing frozen, my hand still on the cabinet door, as though if I stared long enough, it would magically reappear. My pulse started to pound in my ears. I tore the cabinet apart, then my bedroom drawers, my purse, even under my bed. Nothing. "Mom," I yelled, my voice already cracking. "Where's my medication?" Jessica appeared first, leaning against the doorway with that look she always wore when she thought I was being dramatic. "You mean my prescription?" she said casually, twirling the orange bottle between her fingers. I lunged for it, but she stepped back. "Relax, Emily. You don't even need these all the time. You exaggerate everything. I was having a rough week, and you have so many. You stole them." My voice came out high, strangled. "You can't just, Jessica. I need those." By then Mom and Dad had joined us. I was shaking so hard the bottle rattled when she finally dropped it into my hand. "She's being selfish," Jessica said, arms crossed. "I just borrowed a few. She's acting like she's dying." Dad sighed. "Emily, maybe don't overreact. You're fine right now, aren't you?" "Fine." That word landed like a punch. I stood there, clutching the bottle to my chest, the lump in my throat so big it hurt to swallow. My parents looked at me like I was the problem, like I was some spoiled child hoarding candy, not medicine that kept my brain from betraying me. That night, sitting on my bed with tears soaking into my pillow, I opened my grandmother's old leather journal. She'd given it to me just before she passed away, saying, "When no one listens, write it down. The page will hold you together." I wrote until my hand ached. And then, somewhere between fury and heartbreak, I made myself a promise. One day they would believe me. One day they would see what their disbelief cost me. Leaving home wasn't a dramatic movie scene. No slammed doors, no screaming match. I simply packed my car one August morning, slid the leather journal into the passenger seat, and drove away. My parents barely looked up from their coffee when I told them I was moving into a small studio near the university. It wasn't glamorous. The apartment was barely big enough for a twin bed, a rickety kitchen table, and a thrift store couch, but it was mine. For the first time in years, I didn't have to lock my medication in a safe or count pills twice a day out of paranoia. I worked 2 jobs, mornings at a coffee shop, evenings shelving books, just to cover rent and my prescription. Some nights I'd collapse on my bed, still in my work clothes, staring at the ceiling and wondering if I'd made a mistake. The seizures didn't magically disappear. In fact, some months were worse. There were mornings I woke up on the cold bathroom floor, my body aching like I'd been hit by a truck. But at least no one was standing over me, rolling their eyes, calling me dramatic. Things started to change when I met Dr. Laura Bennett at the free neurology clinic. She was sharp, kind, and most importantly, she believed me. She adjusted my medication plan, taught me seizure triggers to watch for, and even wrote a formal letter documenting how dangerous any interruption in treatment could be. "You have a right to protect your health," she told me one afternoon, sliding the letter across the table. "If anyone interferes with your medication again, you take this to the authorities." That piece of paper felt heavier than it should have, like armor I didn't know I was allowed to wear. With her encouragement, I joined a local epilepsy support group. For the first time, I was surrounded by people who understood. They didn't flinch when I talked about losing consciousness in public or waking up with bruises I couldn't explain. They just nodded, shared their own stories, and reminded me I wasn't broken. Slowly, I began to build a life. I saved enough to finish my degree in health administration. I started working at a small clinic, then moved up to an administrative role. My salary grew, my confidence grew, and so did my ability to keep my health stable. On social media, I kept things neutral, the occasional photo of a coffee cup or a sunset. My family had no idea how far I'd come, and I preferred it that way. Let them think I was still fragile, still struggling. Every time I tucked my grandmother's journal into the drawer by my bed, I felt that quiet promise I'd made as a teenager whisper back at me. One day, they'll know who I really am. My heels clicked against the floor as I crossed to the witness stand, each step louder than it had any right to be. I swore the entire courtroom could hear my pulse. I took the oath, sat down, and smoothed my skirt. The judge, a silver-haired man with kind eyes, nodded for me to begin. 2 years ago, I said, my voice steady but low, my sister stole my medication. Not once, multiple times. Jessica shifted in her seat. I live with epilepsy. My medication is not optional. Without it, I have seizures. The kind that can put me in the hospital, the kind that can kill me. I paused, letting that hang in the air. When I confronted her, my parents said I was selfish. They told me I was overreacting, that I was fine. I wasn't fine. I had a seizure that night that left me with a split lip and bruises on my face. And still, they didn't believe me. My voice cracked on that last word, but I pressed on. After that day, I left home. I worked double shifts to pay for my medication. I put myself through school. I built a life, one they know nothing about, because I couldn't trust the people closest to me to keep me safe. I slid the folder across to the clerk, medical records, receipts, Dr. Bennett's signed statement. Everything I'm saying is backed by these records. Dates, dosages, ER visits. Every single time I almost died, because I didn't have my medication, it's right there. The judge flipped through the pages, his brow furrowing. Jessica's attorney leaned over to whisper to her, but she just sat frozen, staring straight ahead. "And I'm not here to ruin anyone's life," I said, softer now. "I'm here because this is what it took for my voice to matter. For someone to look me in the eye and say, yes, this happened. Yes, it was wrong." I could feel the tears sliding hot down my cheeks, but I didn't wipe them away. Then it happened, the thing I had been terrified of. A flash of light burst in my vision, my body suddenly foreign to me. My fingers locked up around the edges of the stand. The courtroom gasped. The seizure came fast, violent, but I was still aware enough to hear the shuffling of feet, someone calling for paramedics, Jessica's sharp inhale. When it passed, minutes later, though it felt like hours, I lay back against the bench, trembling but breathing. The bailiff handed me water. The judge's face had softened, his voice gentler when he spoke. "Miss Carter," he said, "you don't need to continue if you're unwell." But I sat up, my voice hoarse but firm. "No, I need to finish this." And I did. Every detail. Every night, I woke up on the bathroom floor. Every day, I went without medication because someone decided her bad week was more important than my life. When I finally stopped speaking, the courtroom was silent except for the scratch of the judge's pen. Jessica's face was pale, her composure shattered. My mother had tears streaming down her cheeks. My father wouldn't meet my eyes. For the first time in years, they were listening. The judge's ruling came after what felt like an eternity of silence. The court acknowledges the harm caused to Ms. Carter by the unlawful interference with her prescription medication, he said, his voice firm but not unkind. Restitution will be paid for medical expenses, and a protective order is granted. Ms. Jessica Carter is prohibited from tampering with or possessing her sister's medication. It wasn't just a win, it was validation. Jessica's attorney leaned back in his chair, defeated. My sister's shoulders slumped, all that practiced confidence gone. My parents sat there looking like they'd just been told the ground under their feet had disappeared. I stood slowly, every muscle in my body humming with exhaustion, but I was not done. I have something to say, I told the room. The judge nodded. I turned to face my family, really face them. I don't hate you, I said quietly. But I can't go back to the way things were. If you want to be in my life, things have to change. Jessica's eyes darted toward me, wide, guilty. Jessica, I said, if you ever touch anything that keeps me alive again, we're done. I mean it. I need you to get help, therapy, rehab, whatever it takes, because what you did wasn't just reckless. It was dangerous. I turned to my parents next. And you need to start believing me. Not just when there's a judge sitting in front of you, not just when there are medical records. I need you to respect that I know my body better than anyone else. Mom started to cry. Dad stared at the floor. These are my conditions. You follow them, we rebuild. You don't. Then this is where we end. There was no anger in my voice, just tired certainty. The judge dismissed the case, and as I walked out of the courtroom, I felt taller somehow. The world outside was blindingly bright, but I didn't shield my eyes. For once, I didn't need to hide. Jessica approached me slowly on the courthouse steps. Her voice was barely a whisper. Emily, I'm sorry. I know, I said. But sorry isn't enough this time. She nodded, tears streaking her makeup. I'll do better. I hope you do, I said, and I meant it. Then I turned away, breathing in the cool air, my grandmother's words echoing in my mind like a prayer. The page will hold you together. Except now, I didn't need the page to hold me together. I was holding myself. The weeks after the hearing felt strangely quiet. For the first time in years, my phone rang with calls from my parents that weren't loaded with accusations or guilt trips. My mom asked about my work. My dad asked for the name of my doctor. They didn't get everything right, sometimes they still said clumsy things, but they were trying. Jessica checked herself into therapy. She sent me updates every week, sometimes hopeful, sometimes raw, sometimes full of apologies she hadn't been able to say in person. I didn't respond right away. I needed space, but I read every word. One evening, I sat in my little apartment, the one I'd worked so hard to afford, with my grandmother's leather journal on my lap. Its pages were nearly full now, every word a record of the nights I fought to survive, the mornings I pulled myself out of bed when no one was watching. I ran my fingers over the worn cover. For so long, this journal had been my only witness, the only thing that held my pain when no one else would. Now, it felt like a chapter one could finally close. I placed it on the highest shelf in my closet, not hidden, but not where I'd reach for it every night. I stood in front of the mirror, taking in the woman staring back at me. My hair was pulled back, my blouse crisp, my chin lifted. The girl who once begged her family to believe her was gone. In her place stood someone who didn't need their permission to exist. My phone buzzed with another message from Jessica. I'm proud of you. I hope one day you'll be proud of me, too. For the first time, I smiled as I typed back. I hope so, too. Then I turned off the light, pulled open the curtains, and let the night air in. The world outside wasn't safer than it had been before. Seizure still lurked. Life was still fragile. But I was stronger. Stronger than their disbelief. Stronger than the fear. And as I whispered into the dark, I realized I finally believed it. My voice matters. And I will never let anyone silence it again.